So whoever said that overdress might be just Dragon Empire's gimmick might not be wrong. What's up, folks? It's that day of the week again. It's overdress news time, and today we got, of course, the focus for the Dark States starter deck and its new mechanic. Before we get into things, just a quick thank you for 39k subs. To me, it's still insane that we're getting really close to 40k. You know, that's like even a year ago from now, that's something that I never would have thought a Vanguard channel could ever reach. So, you know, I'm really glad that y'all are getting hype, you know, whether it's regular Vanguard 0 or the future with overdress. And, you know, especially with overdress, right now we're still just like covering news, talking about things, but of course, once all the cards for just even the starter decks are out, we'll be able to finally like sit down and start playing and testing and actually just like messing with the game more with the new overdress stuff. So that's going to be really, really exciting. So today, for the most part, you're basically just getting overdress related news. There wasn't actually much outside of that. There was a few promos, one of the Gear Chronicle ones looking really good, but apart from that, it's mostly overdress focused. And so the one non-overdress thing is that I've shown you all the merch that they announced in the last 2 weeks. So it turns out that you'll be able to order that merch through the Bushiroad EC shop, which is basically Bushiroad's online store. That one only delivers to Japan, but luckily you can use forwarding services like Tenso or Baiyi or From Japan to forward them to your house in wherever you live, basically, and that's really nice. Of course, the shipping and taxes might be a little bit expensive, but that's what we do for merch sometimes. So I'll leave links in the description. I personally use From Japan the most, and sometimes Baiyi. Like, I literally just used Baiyi to order these, the 10th anniversary sleeves just now, and they just came in today. So yeah, I mean, I use these things all the time. I sometimes have to pay taxes on them because of import tax, but apart from that, it's pretty handy and easy to use. Anyway, let's get into the overdress stuff because there's not so many reveals, but a lot of stuff to discuss. We're also going to cover the card of the days that have come out until now for overdress. So that includes the new PG as well as the new grade 1. So that's going to be nice to look at as well. So without any further ado, here is the biggest thing for today, which is the new skill Final Rush. So the way they advertise it is accumulate strength for 1 turn and gain Final Rush at the start of your ride phase. Let's power up our units. So what exactly is Final Rush? You can actually see it on the card there if we zoom in. At the start of your ride phase, you Final Rush. So it says specific units get a power up when you are in Final Rush. So the Q&A already cleared this up that this is a just during your turn mechanic, so it doesn't like last for the end of the game. But Final Rush is pretty simple. You basically have to be on a unit that has the skill at the start of your ride phase. So for example, this Diablos Violence Bruce, if you ride it, that turn you will not be in Final Rush because at the start of the ride phase, when you ride, you pass the start of the ride phase. But the next turn, so your turn 4, a turn where, for example, you can Persona ride, you will reach that timing and therefore you will be in this Final Rush mode. And it's interesting because in Japanese they really emphasize that it's not your units entering Final Rush, it's not your Vanguard entering Final Rush, it's you. Like, they literally slapped a Final Rush counter on their hand and it was like, you are Final Rush. So what happens when you are in Final Rush? So the 3 cards we've gotten so far for Dark States all reference it. So our main grade 3 for the starter deck for Dark States is Violence Bruce, and he says when this unit attacks, if you are in Final Rush, Soul Blast 5 and stand all of your front row rear guards. So he's the boss unit for this build, so for this starter deck. And when this was first revealed, I was like, ooh, Mordred, really? You know, just like a stand front row mechanic. But when I think about it, this is, you know, compared to other starter decks in the past, like whether it's before the V series, so like Legion and G, or in the V series, you know, starter decks didn't feel so distinguished and so like, you know, like actually had a boss unit with a winning image. This is literally something that you can build up to be your turn 4 win con pretty easily, and the starter decks didn't really have that. Like Alfred Early Calling Blaster Blade, Dragonic Overlord, Force 1 to Vanguard, like those weren't really win cons. I think the Uranus trial deck got closest to that. Even the Bermuda one that had really amazing units like Lieselot still kind of lacked that win con. It just had a lot of plussing here and there. But this one, as well as the Dragon Empire one that we saw last week, they both have their respective win cons, and that's really cool. So if each of these 5 star decks already comes with a win con attached that you just upgrade through the booster set, that to me is really hype. And so just a quick Final Rush Q&A here. So what is Final Rush? It is information that the fighter holds. There are card effects that reference Final Rush. So literally the fighter possesses Final Rush once they actually get it enabled. When you are in Final Rush at the start of your ride phase, after performing Persona ride, do I lose Final Rush? No, you will remain in Final Rush. After performing Persona Ride, even if your Vanguard changes to other units, you are in Final Rush until end of turn. So that's also really nice to see, because it's good to get that clarified just in case. But of course, what other supporting units do we have? So let's look at the grade 1 first, which is Diabolo's Bad Steve. So his skill is when you ride him, so when you place him on Vanguard Circle, you can choose a card from your soul and call it to the back row center rearguard circle and soul charge 1. And then his second skill is if you are in Final Rush, this unit gets power plus 5k. So this is cool because you ride him, and then if you're going second, you resolve the starter first to draw, and then you resolve this to call the starter behind and soul charge 1. And then, so you might be thinking, oh, okay, so I still just have 1 soul, I need soul blast 5 for the actual grade 3. Don't worry, we have a grade 2, which is the Diabolo's Anger Richard, which says when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, so when you ride him, you can put a rearguard into your soul, so like that starter that you just put down in the back, and then you draw a card. So it gets you an extra draw, so you're going through your deck faster. That's also really nice. I always like that. And then rearguard circle, if you are in Final Rush, he gets plus 5k. So both the grade 1 and the grade 2 get 5k from being in Final Rush, which helps you to have this like strong front row that you can win with that Soul Blast 5 on. And so actually, when you think about it, you have the starter that then gets called out, but then you soul charge 1, and then you ride the grade 2, so the grade 1 becomes soul. He sends the grade 0 back into your soul, and then you ride the grade 3, so the grade 2 becomes your soul. And then when you, on turn 4, ride the grade 3 again, that's 5 soul already without any other extra soul charges. The interesting thing is also that like, this grade 1 and 2, while they are perfect ride deck candidates because their effects activate on the Vanguard Circle, it's also like they have really nice rearguard effects of just gaining 5k if you just play the deck's gimmick basically. And so just with that, getting that extra power feels like you want to play these as like, you know, your remaining 3-outs in the deck as well to actually be able to use. So I think it's really cool. You know, some people, myself included, at first felt like it was a little bit bland, but to be honest, like comparing to other starter deck grade 3s, this is really nice. Like I think Dragon Empire was also quite interesting purely because of that overdress mechanic. And speaking of Dragon Empire, we got to take a look at the previous card of the days as well. So I think every week I'm probably going to be doing this little like summary, kind of like talking about all the like reveals for overdress until now, because yesterday we actually got the grade 1 Reno, which is the main grade 1 for the starter deck in Dragon Empire. So she says when she is ridden over by Ryu, which is the grade 2 with like the silver hair that we've seen in the trailers and stuff, then you can search your deck for a trick star, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. And then her second skill is Vanguard rearguard circle. When she attacks, she gains plus 2k. So this effect to me is something that you really just want in your ride deck as a 1 copy, because you can ride it and then ride over the grade 2 with it and search your trick star. But that rearguard circle effect of gaining 2k when it attacks is like whatever, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really like add too much in my opinion to like your gameplay. And then on top of that, for Dragon Empire, we also got the Perfect Guard. So this is the Hayashikaze, so this looks much more like a Murakumo or Nubatama type unit. So again, I really talked about this. I want to see these different aesthetics meshed in one starter deck, and we're seeing it right now. We see the updated Sentinel symbol, looks really cool. They keep improving on it, which is insane that they managed to still make it look better. But there's an interesting thing with this Perfect Guard in that they changed the wording of it. Before, they basically had the wording of, in Japanese, there's a difference between okareta and tojoshita. So okareta is like put, or like even like moved basically. So when it's moved from hand or moved from rear guard by intercepting, for example, whereas tojo is placed. So specifically not like moving from a zone, but being placed from somewhere. So whether it's placed from deck or placed from hand. So this change in wording from tojo to okareta is a little bit interesting, and I'm curious to see how the English side will translate this and whether it will change in English too, because this is similar to one of the old Bermuda PGs and how it was worded. So I'm curious to see how it's going to actually interact in game, and whether this will be any kind of a change or if they're just changing it for the sake of just saving space maybe. So we'll see. I think Okareta actually takes up more space, so I think space is probably not the issue here. Maybe it's just to simplify the language. I'm not too sure. But yeah, so those are all the reveals. But for me, the other interesting thing is that like already for premium, I think for Dragon Empire, there wasn't as much of an impact, but for premium with Dark States, there's already so much you can think about, because, you know, with the Final Rush thing, you can basically like sit on a grade 3 and at the start of turn stride into like, I don't know, in Dark Regulars Gastile or something to inherit that Soul Blast 5 effect to restand your front row. So basically get like a shower rot with the Persona Ride gimmick and stuff like that. So it's some stuff to think about. Like you can already start testing these 3 new cards in stuff like Gear Chronicle or in Dark Regulars or Pale Moon. In Pale Moon, you could like spam a bunch of Axle Circles and then go into this. The thing is, you have to stay on it for a turn. So you have to basically ride him straight into something else for like your setup. And then the next turn you go into the final rush state because at the start of the ride phase, unless a card like Brother's Soul, like the order card, maybe lets you superior ride in order to activate it sooner. But we'll find out, we'll see. It's still pretty interesting though how this is actually pacing out. Next week, we're going to find out 2 starter deck gimmicks. We're going to find out the Keter Sanctuary one, so that's going to be the Toya one, and of course Megumi's Stoicheia one was also going to be next week, so we're going to get 3 cards from each, so there's going to be a lot more to discuss next week as well. And then of course Bushrod likes to save the best for last, so we're going to be getting the Brandgate one probably in the week after that. So I'm pretty hyped for it. Of course, that's going to be my main spotlight to see how the new Brandgate plays. Now, I spent a lot of time talking about the Dark State stuff that I forgot to mention the other big things that were shown today. One of them was a trigger that was shown during the kind of gameplay demo segment, which obviously looks like it has more on it than typical critical triggers. So everyone expected this to be just a vanilla, at least for the crits, but there is a text box. And looking at how much they've squeezed in, if you look at the overdress cards that they revealed so far, you'll notice that they've managed to squeeze down the text box. So even for more complex lines of text, they've managed to really minimize it so the art shows up much more than before. And so even for this looks like a pretty big, at least 2 lines of text on that critical trigger. Now, some people are like, oh, this could be reminder text, but heal reminder text wasn't that long. And keep in mind that Persona Ride is a whole new mechanic that is part of the rules now, basically. Persona Ride doesn't have any reminder text on these cards. So I think the reminder text argument might actually be just gone at this point because there's no real reason for this. If anything, it looks like there is a cost, like a little cost box on the first line. And so whether this is like put it into the soul to, you know, do something, or maybe like return it to the deck, who knows? But I'm personally excited for this. You know, we had effect critical triggers ever since the start of the game, actually, you know. Our effect triggers to begin with, Lozenge Magus, Psychic Bird, Riser Custom, all that kind of stuff. We've always had effect triggers, so I feel like it's only natural that we kind of come back to them eventually. And so if this is going to be the new trend for overdress, I'm personally really happy about that. So this could imply a bunch of things. I've seen people talk about how it could just be like, again, Psychic Bird, as I mentioned, just like send it to the soul, draw a card, or put it into the soul, maybe like give something extra power. I'd be cool with those, to be honest, but at this point I'll take anything. Like decreasing the shield on these, at the very least in exchange, I want to see some kind of other skills. In the past, we saw if like effect triggers have their power reduced, so they had like 4k power instead of 5k, but it looks like these are staying with the 5k that other triggers have. So it would be cool that, you know, maybe this reduced shield power is because they have effects on them. And so to me, that is honestly really cool. I really hope the heal has a defensive effect at least, because that'll be the main thing we want to be guarding with. Although same, I guess, goes for the crits. Maybe there is some effect where when you guard with it, you pay a certain cost to add extra shield to it, perhaps. And one more thing, of course, they revealed the Megumi, like, art for the actual anime, and you know, of course, Team Megumi is all happy about this. I still think she looks like Noelle from BlazBlue, but they also showed Zaxa, who is one of the mystery characters of the anime we don't know much about, apart from the fact that they use Brandgate. Now, the only other Brandgate aesthetic that we've seen so far has been the sort of Chaos Breaker Star Vader looking one, and with their facial expressions, they look a little bit evil, mischievous, like they're scheming something, so I could see them being the ones that actually use that Star Vader archetype. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to be excited about, and honestly, like, next week is going to be even more hype. Like, with both Stoicheia and Keter Sanctuary, even though I have to wait for the last one, you know, for myself or Brandgate until another week, but I'm pretty hyped with everything we're seeing, and I can't wait to finally start testing these things in the weeks to come. Anyway, that's actually going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.